Secretary Rubio, why did the State Department approve the $30 million to GHF at a time when other well-tested agencies were there and able to provide distribution?
Well, because one of those were in cahoots with Hamas. And we saw an incredible amount of the aid flow into Hamas's hands.
And first of all, you talked earlier in your comments about humanitarian assistance and how quickly it's going out. Quite frankly, that hasn't really happened in Gaza. Commercial, not just commercial, humanitarian aid going in. Let me just talk about the humanitarian assistance.
That's a false statement. I have to correct you on that.
It's not a false statement.
We spent hundreds of millions of dollars in humanitarian aid in Gaza already. And that includes through the World Food Program and other organizations.
Welcome, Secretary Rubio. Under your leadership, we are going backwards. We're losing our moral standing. We're alienating our allies. Our status as the indispensable nation is in question. Last year, a new and untested organization called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation was set up by Israel and the United States within a few short months to take over distribution of emergency food assistance amid catastrophic food insecurity and famine in Gaza. GHF had no track record of providing humanitarian assistance, and it relied on private subcontractors to transport the food, to provide food distribution sites, and then you saw the reporting. Hundreds of Palestinians, including women and children, were killed just trying to get to those sites. Secretary Rubio, can you tell us, can you tell the world, how many people were killed simply trying to access those sites?
Well, since Hamas killed them, you should ask what Hamas is doing.
I shot some of them.
No.
Yes.
Let me tell you the reason why food wasn't going in there is because the cargoes were being hijacked by Hamas.
I reclaim my time because propaganda ain't going to work with me.
Well, it isn't going to work with me either, and what you're saying is propaganda.
Nearly 1,400 people were killed, and that was as of last March. Secretary Rubio, why did the State Department approve the $30 million to GHF at a time when other well-tested agencies were there and able to provide distribution?
Well, because one of those were in cahoots with Hamas. And we saw an incredible amount of the aid flow into Hamas's hands.
Reclaiming my time, the aid was held up at the border by Israel, and you know it. You got to fix
your rules here. You can't even answer a question.
You're not following the rules. You're very familiar with how this works.
No, I don't. I never served in the House. This is a weird rule. Will you ask a question and I can't answer?
Would you please add time to the clock?
Nope.
He's comedy show over there.
I'd say on the
This
left.
is serious stuff.
I agree. That's why
Mr.
I shouldn't have to answer questions about
Mr. Rubio,
shoes.
according to public reporting, 9 counterterrorism and anti-fraud safeguards were waived to approve this. I wonder who specifically made the decision. I wonder, were you aware of this decision? I'm not asking you a question. And was there any written justification? I don't want an answer. You know why? Because now GHF is closed. It was abysmal. It was a legacy of disaster. Mr. Secretary, the Trump administration will be remembered for rubble and rot. I had hoped you would have been able to distinguish yourself above that rot. I bet you hoped it too. Sadly, you have not.
It seems that the Trump administration seems to have forgotten all about the crisis in Gaza. Nearly 8 months after it was signed, the administration's 20-point peace plan stands largely unfulfilled. I have it right here. It looks like there are 4 and 5 have been accomplished, and the rest have not been accomplished here. Most Palestinians in Gaza are sheltering in overcrowded tents, pests and rodents spreading disease. Health services remain limited. Israeli military strikes have escalated despite the ceasefire, pushing the total death toll to nearly 73,000. Late last week, Prime Minister Netanyahu ordered the IDF to seize 70% of Gaza in complete violation of the ceasefire agreement. So, Secretary, the State Department must take the lead for the U.S. implementing the president's 20-point plan. What is the status of implementation? What progress should we expect to see in the next few weeks? What is your response to Prime Minister Netanyahu's directive?
You talking on Gaza?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So, well, because you started out talking about Iran. So let me just say I disagree.
I said in the meantime, the Trump administration seems to have forgotten about the crisis in Gaza.
No one's forgotten about it. I think luckily there's not active combat operations happening of the kind that we saw a few months ago, but it's still a challenge that we're going to work through. I just wanted to correct the record for a second. You said we had not achieved our stated aim, and I know you went through it in your opening statement.
No, if you don't mind, I have a limited time for questioning, Mr. Secretary.
No, but you gave a long introduction, and then you're going to answer some of these things?
No, well, I'm going to get to Gaza. I want to get to the 20-point plan, which is what my question is about implementing the 20-point plan. What is the status of implementation? What progress do we see in the next few weeks? What is your response to Prime Minister Netanyahu's directive?
Let me first start with the status. We are now at a phase where we should be having or want to have an international stabilization force that goes in and provides the security. This requires the demilitarization of Hamas, which right now they have not been willing to meet the conditions necessary. By the way, it's not just the United States that's complaining about it. Many of our partners in the region are pressuring Hamas to enter the demilitarization phase.
So there will be no progress with the 20-point plan unless there is a demilitarized Hamas.
Well, there are other elements of the 20-point plan that are ongoing. As an example, the plan for reconstruction and economic development and the donors that are coming forward to fund it, that continues to move forward and develop. It's just you can't implement it. No one's going to invest money in Hamas, in Gaza, until Hamas is demilitarized, because they know there's going to be another war.
These 20 points were to be moving, I would think, and moving along with various phases of implementation as we go along here. In terms of also humanitarian aid, it is all laid out. But as I said, there are only two that have been apparently implemented.
No.
That is with 72 hours of the hostages will be released. So Netanyahu's directive, IDF sees 70% of Gaza. Just your view, because I need to move on.
Yeah, our view of it is I think those comments he made last week in an appearance that he did somewhere, we have a plan. It doesn't call for that. And at the end of the day, we understand that what we want, and I think what the Israelis would ultimately want, is a Gaza that is governed by a non-Hamas.
So you have no opinion on the IDF seizing 70%.
Well, he made that statement, but that's not part of this plan. This plan doesn't call for that. What this plan calls for, and it's what we're committed to carrying out, is that.
But there has been no implementation of the plan.
Well, that the people of Gaza are governed by a technocratic Palestinian government, a Palestinian.
Please, Mr. Secretary.
No, but you're asking me questions. You're not letting me answer.
Yes, you are answering them. No, you're not answering them because you don't have answers. Let me just say this. And first of all, you talked earlier in your comments about humanitarian assistance and how quickly it's going out. Quite frankly, that hasn't really happened in Gaza. Commercial, not just commercial, humanitarian aid going in. Let me just talk about the humanitarian assistance.
That's a false statement. I have to correct you on that.
It's not a false statement.
We spent hundreds of millions of dollars in humanitarian aid in Gaza already. And that includes through the World Food Program and other organizations.
You know, I've talked to Cindy McCain at World Food about the situation, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
So have I.
And the food and hunger. And it's not there. It's not there. Let me just continue on. Humanitarian situation in Gaza worsens. At the same time, the Israeli government has ramped up its pursuit of a de facto annexation of the West Bank. Oslo Accords have been torn up. Demolition orders for Palestinian villages are on the rise. Incidents of settler violence have surged with no accountability, and the construction of settlements and outposts continues at a rapid speed. From May 12th to May 18th, Palestinians faced more than 50 attacks by settlers across the West Bank, including arson attacks that damaged a mosque, homes, farmland, and vehicles. The UN Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has documented an average of 6 such attacks per day. The Israeli government has begun proceedings to demolish the Palestinian community of Khan al-Ahmar, just east of Jerusalem, as part of its goal of constructing settlements along the E1 corridor, which would bisect the West Bank, foreclose the possibility of a continuous Palestinian state. Do you believe that the situation in the West Bank is one that leads to greater cooperation between Israelis and Palestinians, or will create conditions for a two-state solution and promote Israel's two-state solution, in my view, will promote Israel's long-term.
As the president has stated clearly and repeatedly, he is not in favor of these changes or these changes in the status in the West Bank, that it potentially complicates our ability to work out the deal in Gaza as well. And the president's been consistent. He has said this multiple times, and we've shared that with our Israeli counterparts as well.
The president and you are working to end this war with Iran, and according to reporting at least, one of the main sticking points is Israel's continuing military campaign in Lebanon against Hezbollah, which the president has called on Israel to stop. The president confirmed last night, in fact, that he, in fact, told Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to stop the war in Lebanon. My worry is that Israel's insistence on continuing this war against Hezbollah will jeopardize the president's efforts and the American government's efforts to reach an agreement with Iran. And so my question is, do you agree that Israel should stop its military campaign in Lebanon and support the president's negotiations for a peace agreement with Iran?
I'd love to answer that question. It's going to take more than the 42 seconds. And I know I've seen already that people get pretty pissed off here when their time gets eaten up. But if I can answer that question, maybe the next person will let me continue, because that's a really important question. So let me just start by saying this. Let me walk you through this. We had an agreement. Hezbollah reached out 2 weeks ago and basically said, about 10 days ago, and basically said, we will not launch missiles into Israeli territory if they stop attacking into Beirut. That was the agreement, I think, 5 p.m. 2 Saturdays ago. At 6 p.m., they launched missiles. Then they came back and said, well, we made a mistake. We thought it started tomorrow, not Saturday. Then they went again and violated it again on Sunday.
But also Israel has been bombing and launching throughout. Is that
Well,
correct?
there's two separate things. Actually, Israel has not conducted massive operations in Beirut for some time. What you see them operating is in the south. And what they are, what we've always said, and it's part of the joint statement, we've always said is Israel has a right to act in its defense. So as an example.
Well, but so then why did the president have to tell Israel to stop
Time has
anything?
expired.
We appreciate the U.S.-Israel alliance, and we appreciate very much the response that's being done against 1,100 missile attacks that have come out of Lebanon, as you've just identified correctly, and they need to know that. And how they don't know that, I don't know. But any attacks that are done by Israel are in response, not initiated.
If you have a 401k or an IRA, please listen. Gold is at record highs. What many people don't know is this: you can move part of your retirement money legally and without tax penalties into physical gold you actually own. Alpha Omega Gold helps you do this through a gold IRA. Your gold is real. It is stored safely. It is in your name. Learn more at ao.gold/stand. Alpha Omega Gold is our sponsor, and they proudly stand with Israel.